Hi, Alexis. How are
Hi,
you?
Rachel. We're here.
Yeah, we are here. Yeah, let's get started with our live stream today. Quick introductions. I'll start this time. My name is Rachel, Dr. Rachel Hannam, and I'm the director of North Brisbane Psychologists, the page you're watching this on. And I work with a range of therapies and supervise my colleagues. And Alexis will introduce herself in a moment, but I'll just say that we work together for the last year or two to offer various opportunities for people to find compassionate and body-based ways to manage trauma, stress, and conflict in their lives.
Exactly. Thank you, Rachel. Yes, Alexis
Yeah.
Denny, here's my name. My business is One Natural Therapies. And as Rachel says, public health is the way that I've come to work in this space particularly. But Rachel and I share personal practices in meditation and yoga as well. So yeah, a lot of our conversations have been around body-based approaches to communication, and that's the topic we have in mind for you today. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
delighted that you brought this to us, Rachel. Please tell us more.
I will. I'd like to share a really practical intimate in terms of self-intimacy process today for, as you've titled this video, embodying compassion. But also it's like having a dialogue with yourself, this process, an intimate dialogue with your own psyche as a way to figure out what it is that you are needing or were needing in a situation that triggered distress or conflict, which usually could trigger some form of distress for most of us. And, as we all know, if we're really dysregulated, if we're very stressed, or if we're kind of shut down and gone a bit numb or frozen, it can be very hard to know what we need. And very often we ask ourselves or each other, well, what do you need? And sometimes it's not easy to know.
Mm.
So this process is a good one for slowing down, but also the very important skill of differentiation, which Marshall Rosenberg, the founder of NVC, Nonviolent Communication, he was very clear, as are many people who work in the area of psychology, on the importance of differentiation, which just means seeing that different things in our experience are different. They're interconnected and related, but they're different.
Mm.
So in this process, we're going to break down what happened as distinct from what we thought about it, felt about it, and what we needed. And we'll bring in a bit of a piece, very important piece about mourning or grieving our unmet needs. Because when our needs are not met or supported, we experience some kind of pain, something we find difficult or uncomfortable. So before we get into that, do you have anything you'd like to put on the agenda, Alexis, or share before we
Thanks,
get
Rachel.
started?
Only on a practical note, listeners, if you have a pen and paper, that will allow you to walk through the process as Rachel guides it.
Yes,
But
yes.
just
Go
to
grab a
help,
pen, and if you haven't got a pen and paper, please grab one now. Yes.
yeah, yeah. Um, and just as a way of intro to how this conversation came about, I do find that a lot of my clients, even after many months working with the framework of NVC, still find it very hard to really connect, yeah, with the needs particularly. So I'm pleased that we've got this opportunity because my understanding is, as you've described, there's a dissociation, but even more than that, an overriding of the body, whether that's caused by trauma that's meant I've needed to shut down. It's been so overwhelming that I've disconnected, or even in more subtle ways. The number of times that I might have needed to use the bathroom is a really basic thing, or needed to grab something to eat. If I've overridden those basic needs, then I've lost contact. I've lost contact with those really instinctive,
Yes.
really natural, spontaneous arisings from
Yes.
my body. So, and this, yeah, as you've taught me, Rachel, our feelings live in our bodies, obviously. We're learning that more and more, but our needs live like a pull. That's my experience, a pull in the body.
That's right. Our needs is what propels us forward in life. you know, and we feel our needs are like feelings in that they, you know, our need to connect will propel us forward towards connection. Our need for food will be experienced as hunger, and then that need will pull us forward towards the direction of food, nourishment. So we want to think about all needs like that, but you know, it's hard to connect with them or contact them, as you say. And so often when we have disconnected or remained out of contact with our needs, we can live like that for days, months, and years. And so this process can help you get back in contact with your needs, whether the situation I'm going to ask you to bring to mind happened yesterday or 10 years ago or more. Okay.
Great.
So let's get started. And if you've got your pen and paper, that's going to help a lot. The first step in this process, which I do with people in workshops as well as my clinical setting, is to recall something that was a stimulus for pain. So let's do this so other people can get an idea. Maybe, Alexis, you could think of something that was a stimulus for a painful experience. And for the sake of doing an exercise altogether, let's choose something that's like a 5 out of 10. Let's not choose a huge one.
Okay.
Something that stimulated pain.
Yeah, something today. I was at my son's football match, and after the game, I went up to him and a couple of other family members, and he didn't turn his body towards me, which was just like, ouch, you know, hadn't seen him for 12 hours or whatever it might be, enough to feel.
So he kept his body turned away. Would you write that down maybe?
Yes.
You kept, or something like that. So everyone, just put number 1 and use numbers as we go through the process. Number 1 is, in the fewest words you can, what was the moment that stimulated some emotional pain for you?
Thanks.
No, he kept his body turned away, or perhaps it was, my mother's tone of voice halfway through our phone call. Try to keep it, very specific to the situation. So once you've chosen the stimulus, and in psychology, we'd call that the stimulus, something you saw or heard that stimulated thoughts and feelings. Number two is, what was the exact thought in the moment? As best as you can remember, what was the thought? And if you're not sure, then what would the feeling say if it were to speak? What would you say, Alexis, in your scenario?
I'm not included. I'm not belonging.
He's ignoring me?
It would seem to be more to do with the group, even more so than just him. That was the hurt.
Okay. So I'm not included? Or
Yeah.
is that what you said? Okay. So just write down 1 or more thoughts, but 1 is enough. For number 2, what was the thought that you had? Write down 1 thought. You can write down more than 1 if you have to or want to. And so already we see the distinction between the stimulus, the thing outside of us, and the thought we had. They're different things. And in number 3, we're going to diffuse from the thought. So what we mean by diffuse from the thought, actually, I'll just tell you what it is. It's quite simple. You write down, I was having the thought, and then you write down the thought again. So I had the thought, or I was having the thought. So what would yours be, Alexis?
So I had the thought, I'm not included.
Okay, write that down.
Okay, great.
Yes, so I had the thought, or you could write, I told myself, either one. I told myself I was being excluded. I had the thought I was being excluded. Now, you might not have had that exact thought, but that gets to the gist of the mental experience, which is also called your interpretation in MBC. And you can't not have interpretations, because the mind is a master at interpretation, and it's supposed to interpret. All we're doing here is noticing our interpretations.
Okay.
Number 4. Are you ready for it?
Ready.
What were the feelings? So label the feelings, but also feel the feelings that were there. So what was it in your case?
Oh, it was hurt. It was hurt. Yeah, probably some grief as well. And that's, obviously a bit bigger than the context, but The initial, it was a bit stingy, I'd say.
Okay, that's good. Write down any, it doesn't have to be something on the feelings list. Stingy, ouchy, if it was sharp, yeah, hurt is a good word. And can I just take a guess? Were you a bit surprised? Were a bit shocked?
It wasn't dominant.
Okay.
Surprise. Hmm.
Okay. Bit stingy and a bit hurt.
Hmm.
Okay, so that's what we write down in number 4. Number 4, we write down what were the feelings in, just simple feelings, words, not with a story around them, just these were the feelings. So label them and feel them. Let yourself feel them for a moment, because these feelings will take us to step 5, which is the underlying need or value.
Mm-hmm.
So what are the underlying needs or values that's underneath the thought and interpretation, underneath the feelings? What's the need? What was it for you, Alexis?
Yeah, there's something interesting in there. Uh, Partly it's to do with responsibility.
Okay.
Yes, so I'm going to say respect, responsibility. The word influence comes to mind. It's more, but that seems to be more to do with my role as a mother.
So it's something about being valued or acknowledged or something like that?
Yes, yes, yes. Acknowledgement, yes.
That seems to go with respect, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So good. So number 5, what were the underlying needs? Psychological and emotional needs. Number
Yeah, it
6.
might be helpful for people who don't have much. I mean, I think you've had a lot of experience with a needs list. Even to talk people through what a need is.
Yeah, let me post a really nifty worksheet that's 1 page in the comments. So if people want to, they can have a look at this feelings and needs worksheet, and that might help them identify what the feelings and what the needs were for the sake of this process. Yeah. So,
Which, by the way, this 1 page has been the Bible of our community for a couple of years. So
it has, and in fact, the Wise Heart one, which I normally post, I actually just shared a different one just now in the comments, but it's similar enough. And the needs that Alexis just identified, acknowledgement, respect, they're on the list. So looking at a list is so helpful for the first few years that you're learning NVC, and always, really.
And I'm loving expanding our vocabulary around needs, even listening to other NVC groups. They bring other perspectives.
Yes. Identify what they do indeed. So the next step is a bit of a new piece for people familiar with NVC. The next step is to mourn the unmet needs. So that involves acknowledging the fact that those needs, in your case, respect and acknowledgement for your role in your son's life, which is a broad need, but in that moment, it didn't happen. In that moment, doesn't mean it doesn't happen other times, but in that moment, it didn't happen. You didn't, the value you hold in acknowledgement and respect, it didn't happen. And let yourself feel the pain, maybe even a little tinge of sadness. And in doing so, we can mourn the unmet need. Yeah, and that doesn't mean we burst out crying, but it means we sit with the little micro grief of that. What's that like for you to do, Alexis?
There's an element of acceptance, like a downward kind of dropping, landing feeling. And some very subtle pulling away. That feels more like I've stopped myself from feeling it in the past. Like I've told myself, just move on, rather than, yeah, acknowledging it. And something else about that it may not ever change, that feels that bittersweet. You often use the word bittersweet, which is kind of how it feels. I mean, as sad as it would be if it didn't ever change, and that does feel. I feel small when I say that it may never change. There's also there's a kind of a relief, and there's yeah, there's something, I don't know, almost like a reality check. It feels like a bit sobering in a good way.
Wow, thank you for saying all of that. That's really interesting.
Mm.
There's sort of a sequence in what you said just now that, you know, that you dropped into your heart, a bit of sadness, something like that. And then you also notice the impulse to pull away from the pain, which this is so common. It's so good to honor those reflexive, automatic defenses. We all have them. We can't stop them. There is something that says, oh, I don't want to feel that. It's such a practice to kind of mourn the pain of an unmet need. And then that took you to something else, if I've heard you correctly, which is more what I hear as a thought, like this may never change, which is more like a thought. And imagining if it never changes. And yet somehow in that thought, some piece around acceptance, you know, like, okay, well, this is how it is. Actually, I don't know if it will or won't change, but this is how it is. Now, and that's the sobering piece. Does that resonate?
Yeah. And even a final piece that feels like it's more likely to change, with the extra acceptance and honesty and awareness. It feels, it's gone from feeling small and disempowered,
Yes.
feeling more empowered in a kind of real way, like more matter of fact, that, oh, well, I can probably actually, just for the fact I've acknowledged it,
Yeah.
it's more likely to be different. Yeah.
That's really, really interesting, isn't it? Because when, like, you know, some of the leading experts in the area of grief talk about the fact that when we do grieve, when we do mourn, even in these sort of more micro ways, we will end up more empowered through the power of acceptance of what is. That's more empowering.
And definitely more effective than struggling or resisting or avoiding.
Yeah, or avoiding. See, that's what we do. We all reflexively avoid. We can't help it. And this is a practice. And I'm putting the steps in the comments now. This process or practice is a guide to help us come out of that natural tendency to want to avoid pain. It's so understandable, but we can see when we avoid pain, we avoid contact with our needs. That's really interesting. Let's do the last couple of steps. The number 7 is just to feel the positive. I think you've already done this spontaneously. Feel the positive value of these needs and that this energy has something to offer you. What do you make of that?
Yeah, that's powerful. The value of acknowledgement.
Yes.
And I mean, the process itself has been validating and acknowledging and respectful. How it applies in this setting or relationships, I'm not entirely sure yet.
I just wonder, though, the positive value in having this very valid need for acknowledgement or respect, just dwelling with that. does that have something else to offer you besides the pain?
Mm.
I want acknowledgement. Okay, yeah, I want respect. I really value that.
Mm-hmm.
What does that offer you that the pain doesn't?
Mm. Well, it's placing more value on my voice and my words. I'm
Yeah.
yeah, that kind of yeah, the knowing that I matter and that what I do does make a difference, and it feels just through the process like that's more immediate, like I'm owning it as opposed to it being based on them. Um, yeah, I feel like this might have a longer standing effect as well beyond the conversation. And I can definitely see how it relates back, even through the process. I've got a sense of it being familiar in other other ways. Yeah. And
Mm.
even my bodily response is quite interesting.
What are you noticing there?
Like a clearing of my throat
Yeah.
and more awareness of my trachea, my voice box, uh, yeah, more clarity around my um, vocal system.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is really interesting.
Mm, mm,
And yeah, really interesting. And so that's, yeah, maybe the energy that the positive value of the needs has to offer when you feel into when you mourn, you can accept
mm,
and find that positive value. And so the next step, which is step 8, I've just posted the steps in the comments.
mhm,
Step 8 is to revisit the original stimulus now. So bring to your mind's eye that moment with your son. And how do you feel when you revisit that now?
Great. So that was my son kept his body turned away.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah. Well, I feel more logical and rational about it, and not in a detached way. I mean, I feel like there's an awareness of his position, maybe because I've had my say. uh,
Yes.
yeah, and that it was probably a display of his autonomy, and that he gets to choose. And I mean, there's definitely a new relationship forming between us. So, oh yeah, I just feel like I have a bigger sense of the overall picture.
Okay.
And then also for him, there's probably a need for loyalty to where he was turned that I previous to this had projected and blamed the others for. So just a much, yeah, a more detached and lighter perspective, even kind of humorous now. Yeah.
That's so interesting because when we really connect with our needs in this more embodied way, it
Mm-hmm.
really can shift our perception of the original stimulus.
Mm. Yes, yes, I'm liking this very much. Yeah.
And then the last step, which is sort of optional but often appropriate, is what are the actions you could take in future to honor these most important needs and values?
Oh, nice. Okay, thank you.
So step 9 is actions that could support and honor your needs.
Mm.
So your needs that floated to the top were acknowledgement and respect. Yeah. And often this is around communication, this piece, but not necessarily. What are your thoughts, Alex?
That's interesting because the first thing that comes to mind, and it was coming during when I was feeling more open through my throat, is yeah, it's more to do with a work project and not to do with with my family, this family context. Um, so that still resonates as true.
Could you take some action in service of these needs in that realm?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I do.
Yeah. Excellent. That's the end of this process. How do you feel
Mm.
now?
Oh, well, I feel I feel elated, I want to say. I feel really uh, motivated actually to now that I mean this kind of action has been brewing anyway, um, but having had a process, um, it feels stronger. It feels much stronger. Like I'd actually like to do it as meeting a request from myself and as a gift to me. Yeah, as a way of restoring this probably quite long term wounding or hurt. So yeah, that's interesting. I mean, it'll be really interesting to see how, you know, if this action does actually flow back into my relationship with my son. I'm not sure, but it does make sense that my own awareness and transformation affects my relationships. So
Energetically, and if you were to go and talk with him when the timing was right, the context was appropriate about your yearning for acknowledgement and respect in your relationship with each other, in your communications, it would be coming from your heart, not from your head, is my sense, which makes a difference.
Yes. Yes, thank you, Rachel.
Oh,
That
my
feels
pleasure.
beautiful.
Thank you for sharing your experience. Before I jump off, which I will have to do in 3 or 4 minutes,
Yeah.
I just saw a comment from Sarah, which I thought was lovely. She says that I feel like the morning step, yes, the morning step, which is step 6, and I've posted the steps in the comments. The morning step offers can offer a direction and a focus. And I so agree with you, Sarah. It's so hard to explain why that's the case, but that really does seem to be the case, that when we grieve or mourn the unmet needs, when we sit with the fact that we wanted it so much and it didn't happen, and how that feels in our system, that we enter through the eye of the needle or some sort of portal and we pop out the other side, and there's more possibilities there. Things have shifted. And so it does, Sarah's right, it does offer a different sort of focus or direction. And Stephanie asks, can you work through this if you're currently going through a 10 out of 10, or do you need to take a different approach? Stephanie, you can absolutely use this process, this 9-step process, as we've outlined it here, for a big one. I just didn't want to on a live stream because we are limited by time. But yes, you can work through a much bigger trigger or stressful event or distressing event with this process, absolutely. And you can try it on your own. And if you're feeling like you're getting a bit stuck, then it can be good to take it. I mean, most therapists are open. You could take this, you could print out those 9 steps that I put in the comment and take it to a therapist or a mentor or a trusted friend and say, can you help me work through this? If you need that sort of trusted witness, you can also do that.
Rachel, I'm so appreciating the very direct nature of your teaching and this particular conversation. Yeah, there's a real demonstration of compassion that's not it's not gooey. It's just very direct. I'm really taking a lot of strength from that. Thank you.
Thank you for noting that. And I'd like to give a nod before I sign off to my late mentor, Robert Gonzalez, from whom I adapted this process. He would take us through processes like this on our retreats. And I've I've shared an essay of his in the comments called Beauty of the Needs, or Beauty of Needs, just the beauty of needs. Needs are inherently positive. You can look at the needs list and see that. And I agree. That was my experience too, Alexis.
Mm,
A sort of beautiful detached compassion.
mm,
It's not woo-woo. It's very psychological. It's very scientific in a way. It's just like we do this, then there's a very logical sequence
mm, mm,
to differentiating these different parts of ourselves.
mm, mm.
So
Yeah.
that's really, I resonate with what you said.
And thank you, Sarah, for your reflection too. That helped me to get a deeper understanding, and that's where it's quite a beautiful process to share this with our community because there's something about being observed and knowing that you're bringing your beautiful minds to the process as
Yes.
well.
Yes.
That gives another level, and to know, Steph, that you'll be using this process with your hurt. So thank you, Rachel. I know you need to go to your son's birthday.
I do. I'm looking forward to it.
Great. Well, enjoy the evening, and thank you for joining us, everybody. And any final requests, suggestions, sign-offs?
My suggestion is, and people can leave this in the comments, if you attend our practice group regularly or irregularly, and you'd like to do this at a practice group, just give us a thumbs up in the comments or something, because this is something we could do at one of our Sunday practice groups, which are, can you tell everyone when they are, Alexis?
That's a great idea. Last Sunday of every month here at the Graceful Bowls Club. So yes, if you do give us a thumbs up, then I will take I'll just include you. I'll give you an invitation to the yoga and psychology community where you'll be updated regularly.
That would be fantastic. All right. Thank you so much, Alexis, and everyone
Thank
for
you,
watching.
Rachel.
Okay.
Okay, guys.
Bye.